And we're live. What's up, family? Very, very excited to be back today. We got a very, very great show, and we're going to be talking about basically the global music industry landscape. So, before we get started, I'm just going to shout everybody out in the chat, and then from there, we'll just jump into our topic. So, I see we already kind of got some comments going, so let's give everybody a shout out. So, of course, what's up, Bufo? Appreciate you tuning in with us. Grandtastic Beats. Let's see who else we got. Let's see. Tiger Backwood, what's going on? Let's see. We got Rafa Lozano. Let's see what else we have in there. Make sure y'all share the links with other people. Get more people in here. We finna have a really, really great show. We got the Chef's Channel. We got Pierce SM Live. Let's see. We have D Ford, Neil Zombie. We got Low Wave Productions. And as everybody keep coming in, I'll make sure to shout you all out. So today we're back and we talked about a lot of different topics thus far, right? So we talked about intellectual property, right? We talked about copyrights, trademarks, content ID, producer agreement, licenses, non-exclusive, exclusive licenses. We even last time we met, we even talked about taxes. But today we're going to talk about a couple things. The main thing being some of the updates, things that have happened recently that have kind of been headline news. I want to hit some of those things as far as like copyright and things of that nature. And then I want to talk about the global landscape of the music industry from 2021. So if you all don't know, what you probably already do, every year there is a published article that comes out that talks about all of the triumphs the music industry has made in the previous year. So for this year, right, we see all of the great albums that have dropped thus far, right? Number one leading the pack, you got Bad Bunny, you got Future, right? You got Gunna, you have I'm trying to think of who else you have that's dropping. You got Kendrick coming Friday. Um, you got Lil Durk. You got all of these different people that's dropping albums. So next year's report, we'll talk about this year. But the previous report for 2021 came out, and there's some very, very interesting things. So what I want to do is I kind of want to talk about that report, right? Talk about the different places, different areas, different markets where there's been growth. And then from there, like I want to walk through the different innovations that have been the drivers of that growth. And then when we get to the end, I want to talk a little bit about, okay, with all this innovation, all of this growth, all of these different markets, how do we protect our art, right? Because it's one thing to be able to, feel the growth, see the growth, whether it's on your, producing side, or on your publishing side, or even on your distribution side. But at the same time, and the same point, how are you going to protect your market? Because with so much growth also comes the opportunity of your intellectual property being taken advantage of, your copyrights being used. So how do we balance, okay, we want to grow, but also taking into consideration how our intellectual property should be protected? So we're going to talk about that. And we'll talk about how to protect your art. So we can go ahead and pull up the slides. And then from there, we'll talk a little bit more about all of those topics that I just mentioned. So, of course, we have the global music landscape. We can go to the next slide and make sure everybody, and I'm seeing more people coming in. So we got Guadalupe, we got Miles Got Beats. Make sure you're sharing this link, sending this to everybody, put it out on Twitter, put it on Instagram, put it on Facebook, wherever you are. Make sure you're sharing it with a friend and saying, hey man, come in and get some of this knowledge. Because we really finna drop some crazy gems today. So we talked last time a little bit about taxes, right? And that was near the deadline. Hopefully everybody got their taxes filed an extension. And of course, we had Victor Delamere on. So if y'all have any questions about taxes or just need advice or want to, get a free consultation, go back and watch the previous episode of Protect Your Art, and that'll cover you for taxes. Now, the episode before that, right, we talked a little bit about a couple things, right? We talked about your digital fingerprint, digital real estate, content ID, the power of content ID, and the type of content that's eligible and not eligible for content ID, right? So essentially at that point, and this is something that we're going to talk about a little bit today is how do we protect our art now with all of this different growth, right? We're going to talk about, okay, what are the top 10 markets for music, right? What are the areas, right? Whether it's performance, whether it's streaming, whether it's downloads, whether it's physical, whether it's syncs, right? All of these different things that are happening, all of this different growth, but how are you going to protect your art? And the purpose of the discussion around content ID was to talk about, okay, you have a song, and we know this, right? But we have to keep reiterating. You have a beat, you have a song that you create. What's happening, and I'm seeing it more and more, producers and creators aren't taking that first step in putting content ID and distributing their music first, right? They're selling all these licenses, license after license after license after license. But what's happening is they're allowing other people to get that content ID even when they're not supposed to. And then from that, your personal YouTube channel is getting acclaimed, or you're getting threats with takedown notices and all of these different things. So it's very important that you think about having that content ID, using it as a digital fingerprint. So anytime another song or track or anything like that happens, you're the reference, and now you can get those revenues and royalties that you're owed. So we can go to the next slide. So as we always discuss, right, the purpose of Protect Your Art, right? The purpose of this course is to introduce students to the legal, business, and creative aspects of the entertainment industry. Entertainment law consists of a broad array of core legal issues combining with the relationship issues that relate to producing, protecting entertainment products and talent. What does that mean? We talk about it every time. I think it's very important now to reiterate, right? You have a lot of talent, you have a lot of work product, you have a lot of intellectual property, but how do you make sure that that work product, that talent, that intellectual property is not only monetized, but that monetization stream is protected? Meaning, if you own the intellectual property to whatever it is, right, you're the person that is in charge of collecting those revenues and collecting those royalties. And you're the person that makes the decisions on whether you want this distributed, whether you want to take it down, whether you want to allow other people to create works using it. So that's really the purpose of Protect Your Art, right? Learning about all of the things that you already know, right? How to create, how to do all of these things, but also being able to say, not only can I create something, right, but the thing that I've created now can create all of these other things. And because I would use Content ID, because I use Beat ID, because I use BeatStars distribution, BeatStars publishing, all of these different tools, the marketplace, right? Using these licenses. Now you're at the focal point and you understand, okay, I'm in charge of my intellectual property. I decide who I want to allow to use my intellectual property, who I don't. I understand how to monetize even when I'm not in that conversation at the beginning. I know to use Content ID. I know to use Facebook fingerprint. I know to distribute. I know how to, do publishing on songs and find the different things. So that's really the purpose of what we're doing here today. And like Bufo said, don't forget to share and the stream, and make sure you hit that like button, because the more we share, the more we care. We can go to the next slide, right? So let's talk about some legal news, some updates, right? So I don't know, we haven't discussed this yet, and it probably happened about a month or two ago. But I do want to reiterate this because I feel like we may have some new people that join the stream, and I think it's very important that we talk about, right, the global music landscape. So first things first, right? We all saw Ed Sheeran, right? His song "Shape of You," right, ended up in a copyright lawsuit. And essentially what happens is someone said, hey, this song that you created used my song that I already created. So therefore, that's copyright infringement, meaning I want to be compensated for whatever I lost because you used your song. So the problem with that is a couple things, right? We talked a little bit about protecting your art. So if your art isn't protected, then you don't even have the right to do that. We always talk about copyright registration. Copyright registration is so key because in the United States, until you have a copyright registration, right, you have official registration, you cannot file a copyright. And everyone knows that, right? But in this particular suit, Ed Sheeran actually won, and the court determined that the song that he created did not infringe on the copyright of the person who filed the suit. Now, his statement that he made was very, very powerful, right? He said, this is really damaging to songwriters, people in the songwriting industry. There's only so many notes and very few chords used in pop music. Coincidence is bound to happen if 60,000 songs are being released every day on Spotify. So when you think about his comment, right, and that's why I have it in quotes, when you think about his comment, it's a twofold comment. The first thing that he's saying is this: because there are so many songs that are being created, right? There is bound to be copyright infringement because certain songs there are only a certain amount of notes, that can be used, right? When you think about loops and you think about drum 808s, right? One thing that I'm still wrapping my mind around is the drill music, because think about that one sound that's being used in every drill song. Who is the original owner of that? Who owns that, right? Because or is it, what they call basic public use, or something that everyone can use? But when you think about all of these different things, it's very, very valuable and very important as a creator to make sure that you have all of the tools in place. One, you have your music copyright. Two, you have the registration. Three, you have content ID. You have all of these tools so that when your music is being used or incorporated in something else, you're gonna get a notification and you're gonna see like, oh, this particular song has used my beat or used my track or used my loop or used my kick. And also what you'll be able to do is think about beat ID, right? You all ought to get collectively probably have so many beats out there that you don't even know that people are using, right? So it's important that you think about, how you want to protect your art. The second part about this case, in my opinion, is this: he's saying that there are 60,000 songs that are being released every day on Spotify. Now, when we go into our actual conversation about the global music industry, this is something that we're going to touch on. As songs continue to be uploaded and uploaded and uploaded and uploaded, the percentage of infringement is just naturally going to get higher, right? So if the music industry is projected to grow to 80 to 100 billion dollars by 2030, right? I think it's like 120 billion dollars by 2030. A large percentage of revenues and incomes are going to be lost naturally because there's more infringement, because there's more invention, there's more people creating, and there's no telling what that 60,000 is going to turn into, right? So it's super critical, right, that you protect your art and that you always looking to see, okay, how did this case turn out? Because it's just going to affect what you do, as you grow as a producer, as a creator. Now, the second bullet point, while the first bullet point, in my opinion, may have been a loss for those creators if they really feel like my work was taken. The second bullet point, Unicolors v H&M, right? This case, in my opinion, and I'm going to answer this question really quick. Should we copyright our beats before uploading them to BeatStars? Well, that's a really good question, and we talk about this all the time. So you have an automatic copyright as soon as you create that beat in a fixed form, right? So think about creating that beat. Okay, boom. You get your melody going. Once you get your melody going, you add your drums, you add whatever else you want to add to it. Once you get all of that stuff in a fixed form, let's just say you download that file, download the stem, everything like that, you have an automatic copyright, right? So you already have a copyright in the US automatically once your work is in that fixed form. However, you cannot file a copyright registration. You cannot file a copyright suit without copyright registration. So you have that automatic copyright as soon as it's in a fixed form, but you cannot file that suit without the registration. So Of course, if you can copyright your beats before you put them on BeatStars, excellent, right? We have a partnership that you can look at. It's called with Cosign. I'm gonna put it in the chat, cosign.com/BeatStars, right? Um, they make it really easy, for you to go out and copyright. And I'm gonna put this up here. They make it really easy for you to go out and for you to copyright your works. One thing I will say that if you copyright your works within 3 months of that fixed form, at that point, now you're entitled to $150,000 of statutory damages every time your work is infringed upon, right? So every time somebody steals, downloads, sells, streams, it's like, oh, I can get up to 150, because I have that copyright registration 3 months from the time I got it in a fixed form. So if you can copyright it, right? If you can't, you'll have that fixed copyright, but try to do it in 3 months after you get that fixed form so that you have those statutory damages. Also, they'll have to pay your attorney's fees if you win. So that's the beauty about, having that stuff copyright. The second case, right, the Unicolors v H&M is really important too, not only because, I love H&M. I have an H&M tee on right now, and I just love their t-shirts and everything H&M. So shout out to H&M. But the second reason why this case is important is because it made it so that, when myself, you all go out and we register copyrights, you won't be penalized and your copyright registration won't be invalid because you registered something wrong. So previously, before this case, a lot of copyright registrations were deemed invalid because a lot of people just did not register properly. So when they went to court to sue, it was like, you can't sue. This is a proper registration. Or you registered this under, this, but you titled it this. So the copyright registration, excuse me, is invalid, right? So this case, the second case, Unicolors v H&M, basically just said that, even if you go to register stuff, as long as you do it with good faith, you know, and you say you put something or file something inaccurate, you make an innocent mistake, it shouldn't hold against you, and that copyright registration will stand and be valid. So that is a very, very great case, something to think about. So if you're afraid of doing copyright registration, definitely go check out cosign.com/BeatStars. And don't be afraid, if you make a mistake or whatever, as long as you put a good faith effort forth, this case will help you. So we can go to the next slide. So music industry, the global landscape. So what are we going to talk about today, Attorney Cal? The questions that we have, and we can go to the next question, the next slide. How did the music industry grow in 2021? How did the recording industry grow in 2021? How did music publishing grow in 2021? What did the top music markets supposed to say? How did the top music markets perform in 2021? What innovations are driving industry growth? And when we say innovations, a lot of times innovations are just things that have already happened but are being re-implemented. And how should you protect your art with all of this growth? So let's talk about, first starting out, let's talk about how did the music industry grow in 2021? So if you all didn't know this, I'm pretty sure that you may have saw, just articles coming around, but let's talk about how the industry grew. The first way is 18.5% overall growth in the industry. So when you think about the industry, the global on the recording side, right? We talk about the master side, that's what you hear. The publishing compositional side is the DNA of what you hear. So if it's a person, right, the master is the person. That's what you see, that's what you hear, that's everything, right, that's going on the DSP, Spotify, Apple Music, all of these different places. And when you think about the publishing and the compositional side, essentially what that is the DNA of what you hear. So what we're talking about is basically the global landscape of what you actually hear. And the revenue from that portion went up 18.5%. Now, of course, right, these figures are just global figures, but that's a good indicator that, as a producer, as a creator, as a songwriter, as an artist, as a person that may have your own company or have a label or something like that, there is growth, right? So what comes with growth comes more revenue. With more revenue comes more responsibility, and with more responsibility comes more protection of your growth and the things that you've achieved. Now, the second thing that's very important here is streaming share of global revenue, right? So, in the 90s and the 80s and the 70s, we had 8 tracks, we had cassettes, we had tapes, we had CDs, we had all of these different things, right? We even had downloads and I saw something today that talked about how they're getting rid of the iPod, which I mean really breaks my heart because that was really my introduction to iPod. The MP3 player was really what made me fall in love with music, right? As a young child. So it's crazy that they're getting rid of it 21 years, and I was born in 1994, so that means that the iPod came out in 2001, so I was 7, 8 years old when it came out. So it's crazy that they're getting rid of it. But the reason why they're probably getting rid of it is because 65% of the overall share of revenue from the industry in 2021 was attributed to streaming, right? Meaning, you just saw that quote by Ed Sheeran that said, what, 40,000 songs are being released every day. So you have to think about, how that's affecting 21.9% growth in paid streaming revenues, meaning, okay, how much money that has been taken in from all the DSPs and that's being actually paid out. 21% of what's being paid out grew. 4% growth in performance rights. So when you think about your performance rights, you're thinking about, like what you hear as far as the publishing thing. And then for physical revenue, 16.1% of your physical things have actually grown. When we're talking about physical, of course, that may include some CDs, but a lot of this is about vinyl, right? And we're going to talk a little bit about vinyl, when we actually go and we dive deeper into innovations. So, how did the recording industry grow in 2021? So let's think about this. In 2021, recorded music revenues reached $25.9 billion, right? And on 2020, and these are the highest revenue levels this millennium. So what we're thinking about is this. In 2000, right, after we always joke about this, right? You have LimeWire, BearShare, I'm trying to think of some of these other sites. I can't think of the rest of these other sites, but those sites were being used, right, by so many people. So what started to happen was, people just the revenue and all of these things fell off, and then from that point, right, that's when you saw the iPod and downloads and the things coming back. So from 2000, when you think about the iPod, the revenues are at their highest point and they're projected to continue to grow, right? So here's how we fared with everything. Streaming growth for 2021 grew by 24.3%. Of course, we already talked about it was 60%. So you're looking at about $16.9 billion, that just came in from streaming, right? Downloads and other digital things, we're talking about a growth, actually a negative growth of minus 10%. In my opinion, that's probably the reason why they're getting rid of the iPod and all of these different things, because people aren't really just downloading music anymore like that, right? When you go and you look at, oh, I'm getting on this or I'm getting on that, it's like I'm streaming this, or I'm going to YouTube, or I'm going to Pandora, I'm going to Spotify, Apple Music, SoundCloud, AudioMac, all of these different places. But how often are you going to your iTunes store or going to these different stores to download stuff? I'm pretty sure that I could be wrong, but the BeatStars community probably is one of the main places where you having a lot of downloads because you all are crushing it. But as far as on the opposite side, we have overall recordings. There aren't a lot of downloads, so that's a negative growth. When you think about physical sales, right, you're looking at a 16% growth, and a lot of that is due to the growth in vinyl. I think, in my opinion, one of the we'll talk about the innovations, but one of the coolest things that I see is just like how artists, because first week sales are just so important, right? So to be able to see like artists, do 55, 60, 70,000 first week sales. They're not really first week sales, but it's just like, oh, I dropped my vinyl, right? Like I dropped my vinyl. Tyler the Creator, I dropped my vinyl, or other artists dropping their vinyl, and you're seeing their sales just go through the roof. I think that's just a very great testament to like where people are, in the music space, and looking at things as collectibles. Um, and having a vinyl player. I have one, right? I have James Brown. I have just a couple of things there, Motown, right? On vinyl. So vinyl is growing 16%. Performance rights, right? Recorded music used by broadcast and in public revenue, public venues, 4%. And synchronization. When we talk about you all's hard work, you getting your songs, you're getting your beats, you're getting your tracks placed in movies, commercials, TVs, ads, and a lot of things that y'all don't even know. If y'all run some of that stuff through Beat ID, you will be surprised and say, I didn't know my, beat was being used in this car commercial or this furniture commercial. But syncs, right, outside of streaming is the second largest area, second largest place where there's growth. And one of the things that I will like to say about streaming, not streaming, syncs, right, especially as it pertains to using beats. One thing that's really cool about what you all do is typically, unless you're signed to a label or you have like a co-pub or some type of just deal where you don't own anything, typically you own, you have that automatic copyright, so you own both sides of the song, right? You own that master side, which you hear, right? You own that compositional side, the DNA of what you hear. So if someone wants to come and sync your stuff to a film, to a video game, to television, to a commercial, to an ad, right? One of the things that they're able to do is they're able to clear both sides with you, because typically you're going to own both of those things. The second thing that I will add to that though is you're also seeing, even though there's a lot of sync going on, there's a lot of places where ads aren't even being used, right? So when, I don't know if you all have Roku TV, but like I watch Roku, and sometimes I look at the live TV, right? And when I look at live TV on Roku, I'm like, wow, a lot of these television, stations, with 4, 5, 6, 700 stations, don't even have ads yet, right? And when you think that they don't have ads, you think about Netflix not having ads, but talking about they're going to have ads coming up, which hopefully that makes that price go down, but we'll see, right? There's still a lot of growth and a tremendous amount of opportunity for you all as creators, producers, and songwriters to have your music be synced. And if we're seeing a 22% growth and it's not saturated, and a lot of places just don't have ads yet, I think you all are going to, do really well. So we can talk about now, how did music publishing grow in 2021, right? So when you think about, and let me preface what I've been saying. Previously, we've been talking about recorded music, right? What you hear, that's Apple Music, the Spotify's, all of these stuff that you click on and you hear, the master, the sound recording, right? Publishing, right? The underlying composition is, the DNA of what you hear. So everything that's created before it goes into the microphone, right? The things that you come up with in your head before it goes to the microphone that you write down, those voice notes, right? They can also be considered recordings, but it's really just the DNA of what you hear. Let's talk about this interesting fact, right? ASCAP revealed a record-setting financial results for 2021, showing total revenue collected to be $1.3 billion. Now, this is just for ASCAP, right? I don't have the figures for BMI, CSAT, GMR, the CMOs, the ones around the world, in other countries or other territories. But this is just for ASCAP. Increasing collections from audio streaming, audiovisual sectors push ASCAP's domestic revenue to $1.01 billion, 4% increase. ASCAP's identification, matching, processing of trillions of musical performances drove distributions for 850,000 members in 2021. So basically, what they're saying is, at the end of the day, when you think about, um, publishing and compositional side, as you see a growth in those streaming rights, those synchronization rights, vinyl rights, right? Uh, you're going to see a growth in publishing as well, and it should be on par with what you're seeing on the recorded side. Another interesting thing happened, right? And I'm definitely going to write an article about it. But there was an increase, right? I think a 33% increase in the mechanical royalty rate for physical sales, right? So think about it. I think it was like 9 cents per physical sale. So now what you're going to have is you're going to have an increase of to 12 cents, right? So now the revenue on the publishing side, the mechanical side, is going to increase for those vinyl sales, and also for physical like CDs or whatever like that. But hopefully that translates to streaming and other forms of consumption. Let's talk about how did the top markets perform in 2021. So this breakdown really just kind of focuses on, okay, we have North America, we have Asia, we have Australia, Latin America, we have the Middle East, we have Sub-Saharan Africa, and we have USA and Canada. Um, but how did these markets grow, right? And the reason why this is important as well is because, okay, you want to think about how is my music being consumed and being streamed in these different areas, right? And based on how my music is being consumed in these areas that have this specific amount of growth, how does my distribution, how is that affected? Am I making sure that I'm getting my releases to all of these countries where the growth is? Am I making sure I'm registering my publishing so now I'm collecting in all these different territories? Am I using Content ID? Because I know no matter what region you're in the world, most people use YouTube, and there's going to likely be use of my work, whether it's on YouTube, whether it's on Facebook, whether it's on TikTok. So think about this, right? Here are the top 10 markets in 2021, 1 through 10. Number 1, you have USA. Number 2, you have Japan. Number 3, you have the UK. Number 4, you have Germany. Number 5, you have France. Number 6, you have China. Number 7, you have South Korea. Number 8, you have Canada. Number 9, you have Australia. And number 10, you have Italy. Those are your top 10 markets, right? Here's the growth by just your region. So USA and Canada grew by 22%, which is right on par with all of the other numbers that we're getting, right? Streaming growth grew by 24%. Overall growth is 18%. So you see the US and Canada market growing 22%. Sub-Saharan Africa, right? 9.6% growth. Australia, 4% growth. Europe as a whole grew about 15.4%. Asia grew 16%. And Latin America grew 31.2%. Now, let me stop right here, and I just want to highlight my favorite market right now, which is Latin America. So when you think about the Latin American market, right, you think about artists like Bad Bunny. Now, for you all that may not know, and I didn't know, Bad Bunny is a phenom. I don't know if you all saw, but he broke Drake's one-day streaming record on Spotify. I think he beat it by like 5 or 6 million streams. I think he's at like 186, 187. And it's going to be interesting to see how many albums he sells first week, because it's like he hasn't even hit his prime. He hasn't even got in his peak, right? So to think about, how that market, that potential market is just going to keep growing, as he grows, as other artists comes, as he puts other artists on. I think it's very interesting to see. The next thing that I will say too is I was a little surprised, and I don't know why, but Japan is number 2, right? I see that comment like, man, Japan's number 2, China's number 6. But another great market is Germany, right? Germany is number 4, and you just see the growth in all of these different regions, right? None of the regions, none of the consumption based on the regions around the world are down. So, for anyone that's feeling discouraged or feeling like, I haven't had a really the opportunity to uh, get my music where I want it, or I'm looking at my Spotify, I'm looking at my statements and all of these things, but my music is, it's just in this region here. Don't fret, don't worry. Like all of these regions are growing, and you definitely will continue to grow, with these regions. So, what innovations are driving industry growth, right? What are some of the things that are driving the industry growth? I would love it if you all would type in the chat. Um, what technologies, what things are you all seeing that you think are driving the growth in the industry? What do you all think about the NFT market? Right, there was an article that came out and said 92% crash in the NFT market and sales in the NFT market. What do y'all think about Web3? What do you all think about um, all of these different things and different platforms that are could be argued that are driving innovation. So if you all had to say, don't be shy, the biggest innovation in 2021, I would love it if y'all would type it in the chat right now and say, this thing is going to take music to the next level. Keep everybody, so I see, and I'm going to discuss each one of them. Let's see, what's the next thing? Okay. First thing I'm seeing is TikTok. TikTok in the driver's seat for growth right now. I definitely agree with that. I think TikTok has figured out a formula. It's here to stay. It's a proven winner. And it's the way things are being A&R. It's just perfect for growth. Excuse me. They're allowing monetization for artists on a whole nother level. And I just really think that there are a lot of artists being discovered on TikTok because the way that it's built is just so perfect for, short form content, for music. And I think, in my opinion, I remember when Amigos first came out, and like, you know, um, we joke, it's like back in my day, right? But I remember when Amigos first came out, and it was just like people were so hype about Amigos, but it's crazy because they're the first group, in my opinion, where people not only knew the lyrics, but people knew their ad libs, right? So I think we're getting to a point now where TikTok just really embraces that thing because it's like it's some songs that I don't even know the whole song, but you know, in my opinion, right, certain parts of the song just like in my head, it just gets stuck, and it's like, oh, you love that. And that's what TikTok does. So I think TikTok has a way of spreading music, collaboration, doing all of these different things that, typically you wouldn't see, in other forms, right? Let's talk about what else we got here. There's a multi-billion-dollar bank run happening right now in crypto. Cryptocurrency. So, I'm investing in crypto. I see a lot of, I think it was Bufo shared something with me the other day, invited me to something with crypto. Of course, I talked on the last episode with our tax expert, Victor Delamere, CPA, about crypto. I love crypto. I'm invested, right? Um, you know, but I think there's a great argument to be made, and I see the comment, and I'm going not skipping any comments, but I see a great argument. NFTs aren't being used properly. If artists use them more promotional and as a benefit for purchasing as a ticket, copy of the song instead of a money grab, so of course a market crash is bound to happen. I agree with that. I think, in my opinion, when you think about crypto, you think about NFTs, the overall benefit to crypto, NFTs, and blockchain is not necessarily the value that's being extracted on a monetary, aspect, but it's the smart contract, right? We talk a lot about intellectual property. We talk a lot about protecting your art, but at this point, there's really no smart contract outside of YouTube Content ID or um, Facebook fingerprinting, where you know there's this attachment, right? When you think about a smart contract, it really exists where there's you as the creator owns this particular piece of intellectual property, right? And from the time you upload it and you get that fingerprint, everything that's based off of your intellectual property, every sale that's made, every stream, every listen, every download, you get a piece of that, right? And right now, when you think about blockchain, you think about cryptocurrency, the true value that can be extracted is using that blockchain not only to allow uh, YouTube Content ID to have ownership in that, uh, that technology, but also having the opportunity to have that in so many different other places. Because, imagine if you sell a beat and it's just like, oh, I sold this beat. And once you sell the beat, I sell the beat. Now the beat gets used by this person, and then this becomes a song. But it's like, imagine if the producer agreement or the paperwork, which you already have essentially, was automatically connected to that piece of work. So it's like I don't even have to do a producer agreement, because when that song gets made, when this happens, my royalty is connected to the blockchain, and I'm gonna get paid automatically, right? I don't have to do anything else. I've already stated my terms based on the payment. They've agreed to my terms. I'm gonna get paid regardless, right? And I think, when you think about smart contracts and cryptocurrency, I think the cryptocurrency aspect of NFTs and tokenization and all these different things, right, just show that the payment side works. But when you think about the smart contract portion of it, I just don't think that there's enough people talking about, like, bro, the really cool part about cryptocurrency, NFTs, is the blockchain and the smart contracts, because they allow the creators to have control later on down the road. And when you have control over a particular asset, the asset can leverage. You can pass that asset down to your heirs. You can do so many different things with that particular asset. So in my opinion, I think that's where the true growth is. And I think that there's a lot of people that, you may see it, you may not, but at the end of the day, for you all, if I would say, I know a lot of people are like, oh, it's crashing or whatever, but I would say don't sleep on it, because even if it's like, oh, the value from just the monetary aspect of whatever the market say for Ethereum or Bitcoin or um, Cardano or whatever it is like, oh, it's crashing. Those particular things still have underlying intellectual property with the smart contracts that can be like Ethereum, where you can build on a blockchain and extract value as a creator and just do things in a new and different way. So once that's understood, and I'm still understanding it and trying to figure out a lot about it as an attorney, as an individual, and I think once we explore more what that is, I feel like the value that's connected to it, as far as like the market, right, will go up. But I think a lot of that value, whether or not it's in the market, that value will be transferred to the creators. And it's just like, at a certain point, you're extracting the value without even having to own that particular currency, right? Because now it's like, oh, the value is tied to, well, I own one Bitcoin, I own this or I own that. But once we start figuring out the smart contract portion of a lot of this stuff, it's like, I don't even have to own it. I'm just using this portion, this portion of the actual smart contract to make sure that when my beat is sold and there's a placement, like, I'm straight, or like when there's a sync, I'm straight, or when this happens, I'm straight. I think that's super critical. Let's see. YouTube is still a game changing app, right? And it continues to do so. I agree. I think, again, YouTube has a smart contract, thing really down pat. Like, even though it's called Content ID, like, it's very, very great, because it's like, you have a beat, you take your beat, someone steals your beat, but you distributed your beat before they stole it, and now they put it up, they make a video, it goes viral, all this happens. you have that content ID, you have that publishing, uh, you're gonna get paid, and you're able to get paid while you figure out the rest, right? Because as we talk about, when you think about producer agreements, as publishing involved, producer advance, producer royalties, sound exchange, all of these different things that are involved, right? But content ID is cool because it's like, look, I can get paid while I sort all this out. It used to be you didn't get no money until it was sorted, till there was a case, till that was this, till that was that. But now, you know, you're in the driver's seat to figure out, the issues on using your intellectual property, but you still like, look, I'm still getting that content ID, right? And a person that's invested a lot into a video, or they may not know that they couldn't have stole your beat or used it, but they did, and they're not gonna want to take it down. So it's like, look, you're still able to, have that revenue while y'all figure out whether they need a license, whether you want to do a producer agreement, whether they want to do whatever they want to do. Content ID is with YouTube is still there. And I think the other part about YouTube that's really cool is, uh, as music becomes more global, uh, you have something that anyone from anywhere has access to and can use. Right? I was watching like an interview the other day about what the CEO of I think he's the CEO of Alphabet, which owns like Google, YouTube, all these other things. And he's the CEO of Google. So CEO of Google and CEO of Alphabet. And they were asking him about Google search. And it was just like, we just wanted something that everybody could use. Right. And I think that's the mindset when like they're thinking about, all right, how do we make it so like YouTube is cool? Like it really makes me laugh when I see like kids and their parents have them be running, because I run, right? Their parents have them in a stroller and the parents are running, and you just see the kid on that iPad, right? And it's like they on YouTube, and it's like they 2 years old, but it's like their mind is training them to become accustomed to YouTube, and there's just a lot of natural familiarity there. So I definitely see YouTube growing, steady growing, and I think it's just a great platform for anyone that's trying to break into the industry, because it's like there's so many eyeballs on YouTube, right? And you don't have to like pay. Um, and people just go on YouTube. Like me, I don't really watch TV. I watch TV at night sometimes, but majority of my time, that's like if I do have like free time, it's like, ooh, let me go to YouTube, and it's just natural. Like I don't think about it. So yeah, let's see what else we got on here. Really great questions and conversations too, guys. Uh, do, 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 do. I'm trying to see. I just saw from Cloud9. Have you heard of any certain genres moving the needle a little bit more than others? Um, of course, I would say like hip hop is crushing it. Like it goes without saying, but when y'all get a chance, just go to Apple Music if you haven't, and just look at the top 100 albums globally, and just look at how many of them are hip hop. Right? Look at the songs on the Hot 100 and just look and see like hip hop is crushing it, and it's not gonna slow down, right? Because you all are powering it, right? You're making it so that everyone can get a beat, can have a like, not just get any beat, but like a hard beat, and like you can go in and make a really dope song, and next thing you know, we just talked about TikTok, right? Then it's like you done teased it so much on TikTok, now it's like, oh, we want a video. So then you put it out on YouTube, right? So it's just all of these things that really work, in the favor of uh, all things that really work in the favor of hip hop. And I also think Latin, like the Latin market, where like Latin trap, like Bad Bunny, because it's like Latin trap, but it's like pop too, because the music is just so great. And like I don't understand a word, but I know like the melody, right? I understand the vibe of what he's saying, or like based on the song or his emotion, it's just like I can relate. So I think it's gonna get to a place where like you think about, you have like artists like I forget, is it like Nicki Minaj or someone where they go to other countries and it's like the people don't necessarily speak English, but they're rapping her lyrics from word to word. It's just like that's how I'm getting out with Bad Bunny, right? Because it's like I don't know what he's saying, but I hear his music so much and I enjoy it. It's just like I know the vibe, I know the melody, you know. So it's just like I think hip hop, Latin trap specifically. Um, I'm trying to think of other genres too that I think will grow. Again, I think there's still a lot of potential that's being untapped with like Afro beats. Um, just because like they have so many amazing dope artists, and I think that vibe not only is in Africa, not only is in like the Caribbean, but it's in like Canada and it's in just all these different places where you know everybody just loves it. Like I love that those artists as well. So we talked about YouTube, TikTok, NFTs. Um, but let's chop it up before we end because we only have a little bit of time left. Let's talk about vinyl, right? We talked a little bit about Tyler the Creator and like how he had all of these first week sales based on I agree reggaeton that's definitely growing, right? Uh, when you think about this is a let me see. Shit. I heard YouTube implemented super YouTube things, which could be another way to earn revenue. Yeah, I think all of those tools, right? Like being able to monetize like subscriptions on YouTube and like people being able to give on YouTube. Also taking away the dislike button so people can really figure out whether they like something or not necessarily based on how many dislikes it got because that could be something that deters people. Also, first week sales does that too. If you see something that stream that well, it's like, well, nobody else listen to it. Why should I? So I think they're doing really cool things around just letting people be able to make their own decisions. Um, but yeah, let's talk about vinyl, right? So in my opinion, I think um, one of the things that I would love to see, innovation wise, is there's a lot of like some of the bigger artists are recreating and redoing vinyl, but I would love it if to have just a playlist of a lot of you all's beats just to just have on vinyl, to be like, ooh, this is that Cloud9 beat tape, right? On vinyl. Uh, and I just think that that's a very, very untapped market. It's more so like, okay, certain people got merch, but it's just like everyone don't have still doesn't have merch yet. You know what I mean? So it's like a lot of these things are very, very untapped. Used to be that a lot of this stuff was being used, as a tool to bundle, right? So people were selling tickets and merch and vinyl and all of this stuff to bundle on top of sales so they can get really large first week sales. Because typically when you have those large first week sales, it's just a good projection of how the album's gonna do. But because Billboard prevented those bundles and really invalidated a lot of bundles and things like that. Now, in my opinion, the sale of vinyl and selling merch is really a lot more pure, right? People are really using these things because it's just a great experience. So I think vinyl is going to continue to grow, and I think it's going to turn into something else, but I don't know what. So, last question, right? Uh, how should you protect your art? How should I protect my art with all this growth? Right? How do I so we talked about all these different markets, the growth in all these different countries and continents, the growth in streaming, uh, vinyl sales, synchronization, uh, physical sales, right? Well, not physical sales, but vinyl sales. Um, the growth in music publishing, performance, all of these different things. How do I protect my art where when everything is global, right? Everything is going global, and there is 40,000 songs being released, or 60,000, probably 70,000 since that article every day on Spotify. I'm gonna tell you how to do it. The first thing you want to do, and we talk about this, uh, your intellectual property is no different than a piece of real estate, right? So when you buy a house, you're gonna get insurance on that house because if the house burns down, you want to be able to get that money back that you spent in the initial. And I'm not gonna say investment because some people argue a house is an investment. Uh, but you're gonna want to make sure that that house is protected. So the first thing that I would say, if you aren't already doing it, right, having copyrights, having trademarks, and if you create something that's cool that's never been created before, processed, even looking and getting a patent, right? Uh, I saw something that said, there are more pro bono trademark attorneys signing up with the United States Patent and Trademark Office, um, meaning that it's going to be a lot easier in the future to copyright, trademark, and patent your intellectual property. So I think that's the first thing that I would do, right? We understand that when you create something in a fixed form, you have that automatic copyright. But in order to actually monetize and to prevent others from monetizing what you actually own, you have to have that registration. So always register your intellectual property. Um, Make sure if you haven't saw it yet, or just go check it out. Right? If you're kind of like I don't know if I want to do it, just go look at just check it out. Go to cosign.com / BeatStars and type it in the chat, and go look at cosign.com and just check out what they have to offer because you know for the amount of success that you all have, and it would be a shame if you can't monetize it or someone takes your idea. The second thing, and we talked about this, is registering your business. How do I protect my art? Having an LLC, having a corporation, um, some type of legal entity so that in the event anything happens, you're protected, your personal assets aren't at risk. Um, and also making sure that you own those domain names for whatever you have. So if you have, let's say, uh, the best beats in the world, and that's your producer name, right? That's your tag. Trademark that, and also get the website so you don't have to compete about that. The third thing is um, confidentiality agreements, right? It's important that before you start sharing your ideas with anyone, especially when you think like, oh, this is a great idea, put something in place so that if they run off with your idea, you protect it, right? That's so important. And I think a lot of times, your ideas are, like we talk about, your intellectual property is no different than a piece of real estate. If you got 1,000 pieces of property making $1,000 a month, that's $1,000,000. Well, if you got 1,000 beats making $1,000, that's $1,000,000 a month. So it's no different. But you have to protect that intellectual property because that's something that only you can create, something that's only in your mind. The next thing is content ID, right? Very simple. Majority of the traffic from streaming is coming on YouTube. I'm telling you that right now. And a lot of it is using and is being powered by your creations. So when you get a beat and when you put it on marketplace immediately, right? As long as you're not selling it exclusively or you haven't sold it exclusively. But if it's just a not beat that you're gonna allow to be non-exclusively licensed, distribute that beat, put content ID on it, Facebook fingerprint on it, because at that point, now you're in a position that if anyone comes, rips that beat, and now they want to make a song with it, as soon as it goes up to YouTube, guess what's gonna happen? If you got the publishing registered, you're gonna get the publishing side of that content ID, and then you're gonna get the master or the sound recording side of that content ID. And the last thing, right, probably in my opinion, the most important thing is beat ID. The reason why I would say beat ID is because everything is becoming more global, and you want to know not only how your works are being used, but you want to facilitate more collaborations, right? So being able to say, okay, my work is being used this way, being able to have a beat, your top beat, right? The one that everyone's using, the one with all the views on YouTube, the one with all the likes, downloads, shares, reposts on BeatStars, beat ID. And you'll be able to figure out, okay, I should work with them. I like their music. Oh, I need to make sure they have a license. Oh, I need to get this taken down. I don't like how it's using. And at that point, if you do all of these things, right? Copyright registration, having a business, having a domain name, having a confidentiality agreement, having a content ID, Facebook fingerprint, and using Beat ID, now you're able to fully protect that intellectual property. We can go to the next slide. Future topics, right? So things that you may see me talk about in the future: proper website legal, very important. Mechanical royalties, understanding sync, and protecting your art. Protect properly using artwork. We can go to the next slide. Office hours. Um, Again, I really enjoy seeing some of the messages and things that you all post and send to me on Twitter and Instagram and everywhere. So don't hesitate to hit me at Attorney Kyle. Make sure you follow me and just reach out. And if you have a question, I'll answer it. Also, I still do office hours 12 to 2. So like that's my time for anyone who has like legal questions or just want to talk about the topics more, just catch up with me. 12 to 2 on every Friday, no matter what, I'm there. So yeah, just tap in with me and we can make something happen. I don't see any more questions. I know I kind of breezed through that and we had a really, really solid and good conversation. But if y'all have questions, just hit me and I'll make sure to answer them. With that being said, I really appreciate y'all's attention and have a great rest of your day and your evening. And before we log out, I want to say, your intellectual property is no different than a piece of real estate, right? If you got 1,000 pieces of real estate making $1,000 a month, that's $1,000,000. If you have 1,000 pieces of intellectual property, whether it's your beats, whether it's your loops, whether it's your kits, whether it's a track that you're a part of, making $1,000 a month, that's also $1,000,000. So make sure you protect that art and peace.